Hey guys, it's Troy here, and I wanted to share with you a pen that I picked up not too long ago at the DC Pen Show 2023. And I shared in some of my videos that I did about that pen show that I had purchased the weekend trader ticket, and this was one of my first purchases at the DC show. I picked it up on that Thursday, and this is one of three that I picked up together from a single seller. As a matter of fact, it is somebody that I had purchased from prior at the St. Louis Pen Show earlier this year. So when I was going around and I saw this guy's name was Francis, I got a chance to stop and say, "Francis, how you doing?" and took a look at his table, and he had some really good prices on a few pens. And this was one that he was offering for just $65. It's a vintage pen by Eagle, the Eagle Pencil Company, as a matter of fact. I had never owned anything in the Eagle brand. I had heard of them. I had seen them. I had never had the chance to actually procure one because no one was really offering them for sale when I was out and about looking. But this to me was a stunningly beautiful pen. I'm going to date this probably in the 1920s or so is my guess. And I'll show you a little bit more about this, but let me share with you here some information that I printed out for you, and this is from richardspens.com. I'm going to put it here on the screen. The Eagle Pencil Company. They were a pen and pencil manufacturing company founded in 1856. They were founded in Bavaria, Germany, and in 1861, the company opened a branch in New York City. I'm going to skip over a bunch of information, but they operated for a while with primarily the same family. And in 1969, there was a merger with several other companies to create the Birol Corporation. Back in 1890, Eagle introduced a cartridge filling pen. So you people who think that these cartridge converter pens are something new, nay. They've been around for well over 100 years. As a matter of fact, I've got an old Waterman glass cartridge pen here in my collection. But as far back as 1890, they had a cartridge pen that they had patented. They also innovated patenting some sleeve fillers, spoon fillers, matchstick fillers, and more. And at some point in the 1930s, during the Depression, that they kind of led Eagle to introduce a lower line called ePenco, E-P-E-N-C-O. Those I have seen around, and I know people who have had them, and I don't own one of those, but I have seen a lot of those online for ePenco. Well, this Eagle Pencil Company, USA, says right there, and it says the same thing right there on the lever. So it is a lever filler, which leads me, along with the material, which seems like a nice celluloid type material, that I would call this probably in the 1920s. This one does have some personalization on it, so if you knew a K. Ludeman that is in your family history, I have their pen right here. It's got that nice little cap, or that stripe around on that cap on the barrel. It's got a nice beautiful flat top right there, which it makes me think that it was the 1920s also, because this was a very popular shape. Schaefer, for instance, was making flat tops, gorgeous flat tops in the 1920s. I like the size of this. It's like one of those Schaefer's, an oversized pen. Well, this is kind of oversized for that time period. A lot of other pens were a lot smaller than this, but I do like the size of this right here, which is another reason why it really caught my eye, besides the absolutely gorgeous color. Now, it's got a little bit of scuffing. I mean, you can tell she's been around for a while, but even with some of the scuffs and the nicks that are on this beauty, it still is a right gorgeous pen, I thought. The only thing that I see that's really a flaw, besides some normal scuffing you would get, that right there, you see this right there, it just doesn't snap back into place tight. But I can overlook that. I mean, good grief, this pen is like 100 years old. Got a nice little clip that you want to be gentle with this one. It does move. It's not I mean, like I said, it's about over 100 years old, so I'm not going to play with that clip too much, but you can see that it does have a little bit of movement to it. All right, I don't use clips anyway for pockets, so I am not going to mess with it. You open her up, and there you go. It is a screw top. You can look down inside this gorgeous baby. Just really beautiful pen. And she has, believe it or not, it says Eagle 14K made in the USA. So we know that this was probably made in New York City. It's got a fairly, not a huge section, but it's enough to get a good grip on it. Screws are screw threads are still in pretty really good condition. If you wanted to post it, you can. It is a good solid post to it, which is where some of that scuffing came from on this barrel, is from years of having been posted. So I'm not too worried about whether it's going to scuff up this pen, because it has been. It has been scuffed up by other people who have owned it over the years. But I'm probably not going to post it because I've been writing with it an awful lot, and I've been happy with it. I'm generally not a lover of fine nibs, but this one here, let me show you a little bit about how this one tends to write. People are making a big deal nowadays about getting a pen with a gold nib on it. If you want gold nibs, if you want flex nibs, it does not hurt to go look at something vintage. I've got two other pens sitting here on my desk from that same time period that also have gold nibs. This pen right here, like I said, he was asking $65 for it. So combined with the other two pens, he packaged it together and knocked like $15 off the total purchase price compared to being purchased individually. So let's call it about $50 if you wanted to look at it in that way, or $60 if you wanted to take off $5 per pen. But anyway, I can't stress enough, it is worth it to look into vintage, and especially from people that you trust. You can always contact me and I'll give you a list of some trusted vendors that I have dealt with over the years, and that have an online presence, or go to a pen show and you can find some sellers that I think you'll like. But this particular pen, the Eagle, I do not know the model, or if they even had a name for this particular model, but it does have a 14K nib. Believe it or not, this nib is actually fairly rigid when you go to first write with it. It is rather fine in how it writes. Here it can write almost like a medium if it's you really got a good wet one on like this kind of paper. But I can tell you that in writing, let's say in my checkbook, I was using this pen an awful lot, and on just plain copy paper on my checkbook register that I keep, it actually writes fairly thin compared to what it does on this Clairefontaine pad. But it is a fine rigid. Is it rigid? Well, you can actually get a little bit of flex. It's not going to be one of those wet noodles whatsoever, but you can get some good line variation, and let me show you how wet this is. What a beautiful smear. Wet writer on this. I put into that pen some of this. Some Waterman's Absolute Brown. Absolute Brown. And I thought that would work well with this pen. I thought about throwing in some red to match the barrel. I thought about throwing in like some vintage Parker Quink red, but nah, this ink right here, for me, is tried and true. Waterman's, especially on vintage pens, tends to be my go-to ink because it's mild, it's well behaved, and it's been around for over 100 years. So why would I go with anything else? It's been proven over time. So, 1920s? That's my guess, that this is from the 1920s. Every time, first time, this pen has been great for me. You're going to get a good amount of feedback, and it's not the smoothest nib in the world, but actually it does very well. It does glide across the page. I can feel the feedback just a little bit, so I wouldn't call it buttery smooth. So it's not the smoothest out there, but I wasn't looking for that necessarily, especially when I saw how fine this nib was before I started to write with it. But I said, you know, that's not too bad at all. Extra fine, but extremely scratchy if I flip over that nib. But I've been really, really happy. Eagle Pencil Company. They made a gorgeous pen back in the 1920s, 1930s. So, would I buy another one? You better believe it. This is the first Eagle pen that's in my collection. Absolutely stunningly beautiful. I mean, I'm not one of those collectors that has to have an absolutely perfect pen in his collection in order for me to add it. I add them because the history, because it's something I haven't tried before, it's something new. I want to be able to try out the different brands, so it doesn't have to be an absolutely flawless model for me to be able to purchase that. There are collectors out there like that, and you know, my hat's off to them. And I've seen some absolutely stunningly perfect, pristine pens. I don't always look for that. That's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking more for the experience and the fun of owning them. So there you go. My 1920s Eagle fountain pen. Beautiful lever filler, beautiful material, and kind of fun to write with.